This is the episode where Danny thinks that buying a burial plot is romantic, and somehow the show still pulls off one of its emotionally satisfying endings.
Mindy Lahiri, I finally pulled the trigger. I bought a burial plot.
What?
So this episode is juggling a lot. Christmas expectations, career ambitions, and one of Danny's biggest emotional misreads so far. And what surprised me is that even when I was frustrated with it, the episode never lost control of where it was going. And so with that in mind, welcome back to The Rank. I'm John, and today we're going to be ranking the 11th episode of the third season of the Mindy Project titled Christmas. Written by Charlie Grandy and directed by Paul Lieberstein. So let's find out how this one stacked up, starting with the episode overview. We open the episode as we often do with a Mindy voiceover. She's talking about how there's no better feeling than when you found the perfect man. But that's what makes it even harder when you don't know why he hasn't popped the question yet. Now this is of course harkening back to the episode where Danny read her diary. And we all found out that she wanted to be engaged by Christmas. And if you recall, the name of this episode is Christmas. So she needs to know if it's going to happen. She's doing some detective work to find out if he's going to propose. Going to jewelry stores with his picture and asking if he's purchased a ring. Going through his credit card statements. Actually, this is the one that works for her as she pieces together one of his credit card statements that he put through the shredder and sees a $20,000 purchase from a company called Precious Stones. What else could that mean, right? So they leave the cold open with hope for Mindy. But most of the audience probably knows that there's going to be some other explanation for this purchase. So after Mindy's intro, we see Mindy working with the interns again, where they're trying to turn a baby. Anyway, Dr. Fishman is going to call Mindy into her office because she's been really impressed with Mindy's teaching ability. So much so that she's recommending her to a doctor teaching fellowship at Stanford University. She wants Mindy to learn the newest techniques and then come back and teach them at Dr. Fishman's hospital. But Mindy, thinking that Danny's about to propose, doesn't want to commit to it just yet, saying she thinks her boyfriend's about to propose and she doesn't want to do anything that would spook him. We're going to head back over to Shulman and Associates to find out what the B story is going to be. And the scene is that Peter is giving Danny a check for his rent and calls him Slumlord Thousandaire, which I thought was a good line. But the point of this is that Danny is going to tell Peter how he's impressed with his maturity lately. And Peter's like, are you so impressed that you want to set me up with a date? And Danny is. He's decided to set Peter up with his doctor friend Jessica, who also happens to be a hoarder and has so many phones that Danny tells Peter that it's better to not call. She'll just find him. And then we go on to B story part 2. It feels so B story adjacent that I don't think it's really a C story. Either way, they're planning their holiday party, as Jeremy calls it. Though it's very obvious that they're calling it that because Peter's Jewish. And then Peter's like, call it whatever you want. So everyone gets excited to call it a Christmas party now. But then Jeremy lets them in on other news, which is that because Lauren is feeling like he's been distant, he's invited her and her neurosurgery colleagues to the party as well. And everyone is annoyed by this, including Mindy, who says, now it's definitely going to be a holiday party. Then doubles down by saying it's a rather Semitic group. And she's like, it's not anti-Semitic to say that they're Semitic. And then Danny says he's also upset because neurosurgeons think they're better than them, which Jeremy says they are. But Danny's like, he's out and storms off. Morgan then defends Danny by saying, look, he's under a lot of pressure. He got me for Secret Santa. I know he's just trying to find the perfect gift. Which is, of course, when Beverly says, oh yeah, Morgan, Dr. C told me to give you this. And it's the present, and it's batteries. Which, of course, Morgan even acts like it's a terrible gift at first, but then he's like, oh right, for my battery collection. This leads to Mindy saying that she has Danny and doesn't know what to get him. And Peter's like, just get him some golf balls. She's like, no, that's for white guys. Danny's Italian. So Morgan chimes in and says, get him meatballs. And Mindy's like, nah, I'll just eat them all. Then we just head over to Danny's office. Mindy is about to walk in, but then she overhears him on the phone. And he's talking about settings and stones and how excited he is to tell his girlfriend about it. So now Mindy's even more excited. So we're going to cut to the next scene and build up some more of the B story. This is where we get to meet Jessica, who is played unexpectedly, for me anyway, by Julia Stiles. Jessica's asking Mindy about Peter. Like, is he attractive? So Mindy's like, all right, give me a second because I have to strip away his personality and think about it. And then she's like, oh wow, he might be hot. I wouldn't think that would be the best thing to hear for Jessica. But she's like, look, he's right over there. He's in the break room eating popcorn. You can go see him. So Jessica heads over. So then we're going to cut over to the break room and Peter is in there with Morgan. Peter has just finished the bag of popcorn and is about to throw it away, but Morgan's like, no, wait, I'll finish it. And Peter's like, well, it's mostly just kernels. And so Morgan plays it off like, oh yeah, nobody wants those. I'll throw it out for you. And wouldn't you know it, just after Peter leaves is when Jessica walks through the door. And she sees Morgan eating popcorn kernels, which she is very protective of. She introduces herself and Morgan is nonplussed. And she says, I think we're supposed to go on a date. And Morgan's like, no way. You're a beautiful angel and I'm Wreck-It Ralph. But when she says that Danny set them up, Morgan rationalizes that as that she's his secret Santa gift from Danny. And he says, I accept. From there, we head to the proposal dinner with Danny and Mindy. And Danny is setting this up like he's going to propose, and Mindy is super excited. Then, instead of a ring, he brings out a brochure from Precious Stones that shows the burial plot he just bought. So I get that they didn't want them to get engaged yet and everything, but this was a lame misdirection. But this leads Mindy to decide that she does actually want to do the fellowship in Stanford after all. She needs 3 recommendations and to write an essay, and it's all due the next day. She finds this out from Dr. Fishman, whose office she went to tell her. And then Dr. Fishman is going to give some sage advice here, that career and ambitions don't age well when sitting on a shelf. You should put them away because you want to, not because you think you have to. To which Mindy rightfully says, you are so wise. Either way, Mindy's gonna go tell Danny about the fellowship news. And Danny's like, what about us? And she's like, well, I'm not married, I'm not engaged. It's the best chance to do it. It's only 8 months and I'll be back in time to ruin football. But here's where the problem comes in. Danny had actually accepted this explanation from her, but when he talks to Peter about it, Peter says that he's in a proposal trap. How is it that Peter is the only one that seems to get Mindy or remember what's happened between her and Danny? Why doesn't Danny remember that she wrote in her diary that she expected to be engaged by Christmas? Anyway, because Peter says this, Danny is now convinced that she's not serious about the fellowship. So we're gonna go over to the date between Jessica and Morgan, though she still thinks it's Peter. It goes really well and they end up sleeping together, with Morgan actually enjoying her hoarding. But in the morning, Morgan is going to find out that she thinks he's Peter because she says, I can't believe I slept with Peter Prentice. So we're gonna go back to the B story real quick, and one of the 3 recommendations that Mindy is trying to get is from Dr. Ledreau, who is still dating Danny's mom, Annette, by the way. So Dr. Ledreau is gonna come into the break room where Danny's sitting and ask for help, coming up with an adjective for Mindy that isn't Indian. And then Danny's gonna tell him to not freaking write it. He tells Dr. Ledreau that Mindy isn't taking it seriously. I mean, he wasn't even ambiguous about it either. He straight up says, don't write it. But now we're gonna go on to the Christmas party though. And Beverly is saying she wants to give a toast, and Jeremy's like, yeah, that sounds nice. And she says, good, because I have a lot of things to say about Israel. And he goes and shuts her up in a closet after she says that. But, you know, that would have played a lot better nowadays, just saying. Next thing we know, Rob McElhaney is back as Morgan's cousin Lou. He invited him as his +1 because the girl he's dating doesn't know who he is. But Jessica shows up anyway and forces Morgan to pull Peter away. The next thing we see is Peter saying, so the girl that Danny picked for me is dating you but thinks you're me? And then Morgan replies, yes, and it only took you 20 minutes to get that. But Peter is torn between having an opportunity at an adult relationship or helping a bro get a girl by lying. But when Morgan tells him that he already slept with her, that sort of cinches it for Peter. He's gonna help. Before we continue on the B story though, we're gonna have Danny visit a crying Mindy. Why is she crying? Because she found out that Dr. Ledreau has refused to do the recommendation for her. Danny's like, you didn't really want to go though, right? And she's like, of course I did. She wanted to go so bad that she was willing to be away from him for 8 months. Then she said she was just really excited to show people what she was capable of. So damn, you really fucked up, Danny. We're gonna go back to the B story, and Lauren's back again. And when they're all confused by Jessica seemingly calling Morgan Peter, Peter pulls Lauren and Jeremy aside and tells them the deal. Jeremy's like, no. But right as he's saying that, Lauren is like, that sounds fun. So Jeremy then's like, yeah, that's what I was gonna say, fun. And we're getting the sense that Lauren might be back in play for Peter here. And honestly, it's probably better for her and her kid, especially over Jeremy, who just recently said, I just wanted a girlfriend. As the party continues, Mindy is going to get everyone's attention because she's made something for Danny. What she made for him was a documentary about his life in the style of Ken Burns. And the opening is a picture probably from the turn of the century, as in the turn of the 20th century, that she has labeled as 1974. Just a great visual gag. So we're gonna get interviews with various people, like his mom Annette, and voiceover from Mindy, talking about all he's overcome to become a doctor, like his skank addiction. Then it's Morgan's turn. And of course, Jessica is seeing the name Morgan Tukers under his image. And then Morgan says in the video, me, Morgan Tukers. And then right after him, it's Peter with the name Peter Prentice. And so clearly Jessica is upset. She's like, basically like, you're Morgan? And then Beverly yells out, he's also an ex-con who lives with his grandma. Damn, Beverly, that's messed up. When Jessica runs off, we go back to the documentary. Cousin Lou is next. And he says that him and Danny are best friends, which makes Morgan and Danny at the same time turn and go, what? But Morgan's gonna go chase after Jessica after this. Now it's Mindy's turn on the documentary. She reads one of the letters that Danny sent her while she was in Haiti, and in it she reads that Danny said he misses her and to not let it go to her head. And she says, guess what? It went to my head. That was a nice touch, and one that really reinforces to Danny how much he screwed up. So he runs off before he can see that Mindy actually got Ken Burns to be in the documentary. How did she do that? Anyway, Danny's gonna go to his mom and say that he needs her engagement ring. It's the only way to make things right. And this was a little disappointing to me because I thought maybe after seeing that documentary, he was like realizing he's in love and he's ready to marry her. But it was really just to fix things. So I was actually glad when Annette said, you don't need to propose to her to fix things, just get her into the fellowship. But first we've got to get to Morgan and Jessica. Morgan is standing outside of her apartment yelling up to her, but then she comes around the corner and is like, what are you doing? Anyway, basically they just agree to keep seeing each other. And I like it, but at the same time, I still want to see him and Tamara together. But to really button up the B story though, we're going to show Peter and Lauren getting along. He bought a truck for Henry, her son, for Christmas. And then we see them bonding over their mutual dislike of Christmas. And then she gives him a kiss on the cheek. So it is very clear that she is definitely back in play for Peter. Back to the A story though. And we see Danny delivering Mindy's application to Dr. Fishman while she's in an all-female nativity scene. Danny keeps asking questions about this all-female nativity scene. And the final one is, are they the three wise women? And that's the last straw for him, because that's basically witchcraft according to him. And as he leaves, Dr. Fishman is like, what's wrong with you? And so we go back to Mindy, who's watching the documentary, and she thinks that Danny didn't like it because he ran off. And Danny's like, no, I loved it. I ran out to get this. And he gives her a copy of the recommendation that he wrote for her application to Stanford. So Mindy's gonna actually read it aloud. And it's a very nice letter. One of the few times where Danny really feels like he redeemed himself. And while she's reading it, we get a little scene that says 2 weeks later, and she's been accepted. And that's the whole episode. I'm interested in seeing where they're gonna take this, but for now, let's just find out how this one ranked.
I'll rank.
So the rank is where I rank the episode based on 5 categories: story, acting, dialogue, episode coherence, and character relatability. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. And then I have a laugh counter where I tally up the amount of times the episode made me laugh. 1 point per laugh out loud gets added to the score. But before I dive into the rankings, I just want to say if you're enjoying this episode, please leave a like down below. It really does help me out. But without further ado, the first category is story. And this is a blend of a story to give us closure on Mindy's diary, saying that she would end it with Danny if she doesn't get a proposal by Christmas. And a new story where she's hoping to get a fellowship to Stanford for 8 months. And the B story is a case of mistaken identity, which is always kind of a home run for comedy. I thought it was a great story all around. I gave it a 5. So let's go to acting. Some really heartfelt moments here and tough situations to act in. I'm going to nitpick Mindy a little bit here, because I thought her emotional scene where she finds out that Dr. Ledreau didn't write the recommendation wasn't that great. Other than that though, really solid all the way around. I gave it a 4.5. So on to dialogue. And this show is always funny. Well, almost always if you watch the last one I did. Anyway, this one was a pretty close return to form. But besides the jokes, they wrote some real moving lines and wise ones from Dr. Fishman. I gave it a 4.25. So this brings us to episode coherence. This works on the series level. And sometimes I get annoyed with Danny, but I guess that's just who he is. It's a little hard to believe that Morgan and Jessica did an entire date and slept with each other, and she didn't find out his name was Morgan the entire time. Also, in what world would Danny think that Mindy is excited about him buying a burial plot for himself? I'm fine with the idea that this was the actual expenditure, but for him to say he's so excited to tell his girlfriend about it is just dumb. I gave it a 3.5. So that brings us to character relatability. I think all of it is relatable. I can relate to the idea that you want to hold off on making a big decision because you want to know where you stand with your significant other. I can also relate to Danny feeling like he might be being manipulated. I can relate to Peter lying to help Morgan, and I can relate to Morgan wanting to lie so that he can keep dating Jessica. I mean, it's all relatable. I gave it a 5. So we had some pretty high scores here. A decent laugh counter will put it in the top 3 tiers for sure. And it got me 19 times, so better than decent. And it puts the grand total at a 41.25, which puts it in the top tier, meaning of life. And as for the series average, it goes back up to a 37, which puts it firmly in the holy grail. And if you're ranking along with me, drop your scores in the comments. I'd be really curious to see where we align and where we differ, especially with the laugh counter. So thanks for listening and or watching. Check out my other Mindy Project episodes or any of my other sitcom or movie ranking episodes on this channel. Remember to subscribe, comment, and like. And for up-to-date rankings, you can check out my website at therankedpodcast.com, or you can also email me at john@therankedpodcast.com. And if you really want to support the show, you can become a patron at patreon.com/therankedpodcast. But I will leave you with this. Why does Mindy binge watch Chris Hemsworth, Pratt, and Pine movies during the holidays?
Well, why is that?
Because she wants Moss Chris.
Worst one yet.
And ask for help coming up with an adjective for Mindy that is...
Cut!
And ask for help coming up... hold on.
Cut!
So Dr. Ledreau is going to come into the...
We're gonna be here a while.